In the early hours of a quiet morning in southeast Houston, a place that should have felt safe became the center of a sudden and devastating mystery. A mother of four was struck by a vehicle in her own driveway, the same driveway she had likely used hundreds of times before. According to police, the impact was fatal, but what happened in those critical moments remains deeply unclear. Investigators say a car was involved. What they have not fully explained is why it happened, who was behind the wheel, or what led a moving vehicle into a private driveway at that exact moment. Was this a tragic accident, or something far more deliberate? Why was the driver not immediately identified at the scene? And how does a mother end up losing her life in a space meant for protection, not danger? Neighbors reported confusion. Family members were left searching for answers, for children were suddenly left without their mother, a reality that no official statement can fully explain away. Police say the investigation is ongoing, but timelines matter, direction matters, and intent matters. Because when a life is taken at home, the questions do not fade, they multiply. Tonight, we examine what is known, what has been confirmed, and the critical gaps that still demand answers. This is not just a report. This is a case that does not let go, and neither should the truth. What began as an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in southeast Houston ended in sudden loss. According to Houston police, a woman was standing in her own driveway when she was struck and killed by a car. Tire tracks and crash remnants were left behind, marking a space that moments earlier had been part of everyday life. Surveillance video from the area captures the sound of screeching tires, followed by the violent impact. Police later confirmed the victim was a mother of four. The incident happened on Court Street near Skills Park, not far from the intersection of 288. Eyewitness News reported that two cars were involved. In the video, a gold Toyota sedan can be seen speeding down the street. Seconds later, a Chevy Cobalt appears, moving quickly behind it. Houston police say the second vehicle was chasing the first. Instead of reaching the other car, investigators say the Chevy struck the woman as she stood in her driveway. This is the moment where routine turns into shock. A driveway is a place associated with safety, not danger. Hearing that a mother was killed in that space forces people to stop and think. How does something like this unfold so fast? How does a private driveway become a deadly crash scene within seconds? Witnesses described the sound before they understood what had happened. One person said they were inside their room when they heard a loud crash. At first, they did not know if the noise was far away. Then they heard screams and realized it was close. They put on their shoes and ran outside to see what was happening. By then, the damage had already been done. According to Houston police and witnesses, the events that led to the crash did not start on Court Street. Investigators say the argument began nearby at the Vermilion Apartments. Neighbors reported seeing a man and his girlfriend in a heated argument in the apartment parking lot. Surveillance video shows a gold Toyota sedan leaving the complex. Police say it was being driven by the woman involved in the argument. Moments later, the Chevy Cobalt, driven by the man, followed. Here is where the story takes another turn. The focus shifts from the driveway to what happened before the cars reached it. Police say both vehicles rounded the corner, and seconds later the crash happened. Robert White, who was watching office cameras in the area, said he saw a car come out of the apartment at a high speed. He then saw employees run outside after the crash. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend following the argument. He is currently under arrest, and charges are pending. At this stage, investigators have not announced those charges publicly. What is clear, according to police, is that the woman standing in the driveway was not involved in the argument and had no connection to the vehicles. For the victim's family, especially her children, the impact is permanent. Police confirmed she was a mother of four, and her children told reporters they are devastated by her death. Neighbors also expressed disbelief and anger. One neighbor said they were upset that reckless behavior in a residential area cost someone her life. They said children lost their mother over something that likely did not matter in the long run. In my view, this is where the weight of the case settles in. An argument that started in a parking lot ended with a mother losing her life in her own driveway. The path from anger to loss was short, but the consequences are lasting. This chapter leaves us with questions that matter. Should high-speed chasing ever happen in a residential area? How many lives are changed when one moment of control is lost? The case moves from description to documentation. The moment surveillance video enters the picture. Eyewitness news reports that multiple cameras captured what words alone cannot fully explain. In the footage, the sound arrives before the understanding does. You hear the screech of tires, sharp and sudden, followed by the impact. Houston police say this is the moment a woman standing in her own driveway was hit and killed. This chapter shifts the story because it fixes time and movement. The video shows a gold Toyota sedan speeding down the street on Tuesday afternoon. Seconds later, a Chevy Cobalt appears, moving quickly behind it. Police say the second vehicle was trying to catch the first. Instead, investigators say, it struck Santos as she stood in her driveway on Court Street near Skills Park. Video does not speak, but it shows sequence. Two cars pass through a residential area. The first drives very quickly past the driveway. The second follows and does not pass. That difference changes everything. This is when a case becomes heavier, because a camera does not look away. It holds a moment, and the sound stays with you. A nearby resident described hearing the crash from inside a room close to the street. They said they did not know if the noise was far away at first. Then they heard screams and realized it was close. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what was happening. By the time people reached the driveway, the scene had already changed lives. From an investigative point of view, the video anchors a timeline but also narrows it. Police say the argument that led to this tragic crash started around the corner at the Vermilion Apartments. Neighbors reported a heated argument between a man and his girlfriend in the apartment parking lot. Surveillance video shows a gold Toyota sedan leaving the complex. Police say it was driven by the woman involved in that argument. A few moments later, the Chevy Cobalt, driven by the man, followed. This is where the footage adds another layer. Cameras show movement, but they do not explain motive. They show speed, but not judgment. They show direction, but not restraint. In my opinion, this is the quiet danger of video evidence. It feels complete, yet leaves space where answers should be. Robert White said he was watching office cameras when he saw a car come out of the apartment and speed around the corner. He then saw employees run outside. That reaction, captured after the fact, tells its own story. People did not run because of noise alone. They ran because something had gone wrong. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend after the argument. He is currently under arrest and charges are pending. That statement places responsibility in motion, but it does not close a case. It connects the argument to the crash. Yet the moment between those 2 points remains difficult to process. For the family, especially Santos' children, the video changes nothing and everything at the same time. She was a mother of 4. Her children told reporters they are devastated by her death. Seeing that the moment exists on camera does not bring clarity. It brings weight. A neighbor expressed anger, saying reckless behavior in a residential area led to a mother losing her life and children losing their mother over something that did not matter. That reaction reflects how many people feel when speed meets a place meant for living. This chapter begins with movement, not people speaking, not police statements, but 2 cars moving through a residential street in southeast Houston. According to Houston police in surveillance video, a gold Toyota sedan is seen speeding down the street on Tuesday afternoon. It passes quickly through the area. Seconds later, a second car appears. Police point to a Chevy Cobalt trying to catch the sedan. What happens next places both vehicles on the same fatal path. Eyewitness news describes how 2 cars came whizzing by. The first car drove very quickly past the driveway. The second car, which police say was chasing after the first, did not pass. Instead, investigators say it struck Santos as she stood in her own driveway on Court Street near Skills Park. That short gap between the 2 vehicles is where everything changes. From an investigative point of view, this is the moment where attention shifts away from the driveway and toward the road itself. The driveway did not move. Santos did not move. The movement belonged entirely to the vehicles. The gold sedan kept going. The Chevy Cobalt did not. Multiple surveillance videos show the same pattern. The gold Toyota sedan speeds down the street. Seconds later, the Chevy follows. Police say the Chevy was trying to catch the sedan. That pursuit, according to investigators, ended not with contact between the two cars, but with mother of four being hit while standing in her driveway. Listening to the sound captured on video adds weight to what the images show. You hear the screech of tires before the impact. The sound arrives first, then the realization. A nearby resident said they were in their room when they heard a loud crash. At first, they did not know if it was off in the distance. Then they heard screams, and they sounded much closer. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what was going on. This is where tension settles in. Two cars, one street, one moment that cannot be undone. Police say the argument that led to this tragic crash started around the corner at the Vermilion Apartments. Neighbors say a man and his girlfriend were having a heated argument in the apartment parking lot. Surveillance video shows a gold sedan leaving the complex. Police say it was driven by the woman. A few moments later, the Chevy driven by the man followed. Robert White said he was watching his office cameras when he saw a car come out of the apartments and speed around the corner. He then saw employees run outside. That reaction shows how quickly concern replaced routine. People did not yet know who was hurt, only that something serious had happened. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend after the argument. He is currently still under arrest and charges are pending. That statement links the two cars together and explains why they were moving so fast to a residential area. In my view, this is the hardest part to sit with. Two vehicles entered the same street for very different reasons. One passed through. One stayed on course just long enough to change multiple lives. The road itself did not choose. Speed did. At this stage of the investigation, the focus shifts from movement on the street to the reason police say the movement began. According to Houston Police Department, the driver of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend following an argument. This statement does not come from speculation. It comes directly from investigators as they began explaining why two cars were traveling at high speed through a residential area in southeast Houston. Eyewitness News reports that the argument happened before the crash, not at the driveway and not on Court Street. Police and witnesses say it started around the corner at the Vermilion Apartments. Neighbors described a man and his girlfriend having a heated argument in the apartment parking lot. Surveillance video shows a gold Toyota sedan leaving the complex. Police say the sedan was being driven by the woman. A few moments later, the Chevy Cobalt, driven by the man, followed. This is where the chase theory takes shape. Police say the man was chasing after his girlfriend. The video does not show words exchanged. It does not show emotions. It only shows sequence. One car leaves. Another follows. Both turn onto nearby streets. Seconds later, police say the crash happens. From an investigative point of view, this theory explains speed, but it does not explain restraint. The vehicles did not remain inside a parking lot. They entered public roads. They entered a residential area. They entered a space where people stand outside their homes. That is where the theory becomes heavier, because the outcome did not involve the two people arguing. It involved a mother of four who was simply standing in her driveway. Eyewitness News described how two cars came whizzing by. The first drove very quickly past the driveway. The second, which police say was chasing the first, struck Santos instead. This detail matters because it separates intent from impact. According to police, the chase was directed at another car, not at the woman in the driveway. Yet, the result was fatal. A witness described hearing the crash from inside a nearby room. They said they did not know if the sound was far away at first. Then they heard screams and realized it was close. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what was going on. That reaction captures how quickly an argument somewhere else became an emergency here. Robert White said he saw a car come out of the apartments and speed around the corner while he was watching his office cameras. He then saw employees run outside. This detail supports the police timeline. The movement was fast. The response was immediate. There was no long gap between the argument and the crash. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt is currently still under arrest and charges are pending. That status shows the investigation is active and not finished. At this point, police have explained what they believe happened, but not yet how the legal system will classify it. In my view, this is a moment where anger and uncertainty meet. An argument between two people did not stay contained. It moved into the street. It moved into a neighborhood. It ended with children losing their mother. Neighbors expressed disbelief and frustration. One neighbor said they were angry that reckless behavior led to a mother losing her life over something that did not matter. This chapter raises questions that deserve attention. When police say a chase followed an argument, where should responsibility stop? Should chasing another car ever continue through a residential area? Could this outcome have been avoided if the pursuit had ended sooner? Share your thoughts in the comments now. The next chapter moves one step back again, to the moment before the chase began, where words were exchanged and emotions rose. What exactly happened during that argument before impact? The investigation now moves backward in time, away from the driveway on Court Street, and back to where police say everything began. According to Houston police and witnesses, the events leading to the fatal crash started around the corner at the Vermilion Apartments. This shift matters because it places its origin of the tragedy not at the point of impact, but moments earlier, during an argument. Eyewitness news reports that neighbors saw a man and his girlfriend involved in a heated argument in the apartment parking lot. This detail is not speculation. It comes directly from people who were there and from investigators who reviewed the timeline. The argument did not happen on the street. It did not happen near the driveway. It happened inside the complex, before either car entered the roadway. Surveillance video from the apartments shows a gold Toyota sedan leaving the parking lot. Police say the sedan was being driven by the woman. The video does not show what was said during the argument. It does not show gestures or words. It shows only the result. The gold sedan pulls away from the complex. A few moments later, the Chevy Cobalt follows. Police say the Chevy was being driven by the man. This is a point where tension quietly turns into motion. According to investigators, the Chevy followed the gold sedan after the argument. That sequence matters. It explains why two cars left the same location within moments of each other. It explains why both vehicles were later seen speeding through nearby streets. It also explains why police say the second driver was chasing after his girlfriend. From an investigative perspective, this is where the story becomes harder to separate into simple parts. An argument is common. People argue every day. What stands out here is what happened next. Instead of ending in the parking lot, the disagreement moved onto public roads. It moved into a residential area. It moved closer to people who had no connection to the dispute. Robert White said he saw a car come out of the apartment and speed around the corner while he was watching his office cameras. He then saw employees run outside after the crash happened seconds later. His observation supports the police timeline. The movement from argument to impact was fast. There was little distance between cause and outcome. Eyewitness news also reports that the people involved used to live at the apartment complex but had moved out some time ago. They returned on Tuesday to meet with friends before the argument broke out. This detail adds another layer. It suggests the location was familiar. The streets were known. This was not an unfamiliar area. In my opinion, this chapter is where the weight of choice becomes clear. The argument itself did not involve Santos. She was not part of the dispute. She was not connected to the vehicles. Yet the decision to leave the parking lot at speed placed her directly in harm's way. That connection is difficult to ignore. Witnesses later describe hearing the crash from nearby homes. One person said they heard a loud crash and then screams that sounded closer than expected. They ran outside to see what's going on. That reaction shows how suddenly the argument's consequences reached beyond the people involved. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt remains under arrest and that charges are pending. At this stage, investigators have outlined what they believe happened, but have not yet finalized how it will be charged. The focus remains on the sequence of events and the decisions made before the crash. This chapter raises questions that deserve attention. When an argument turns into pursuit, where should it stop? At what point does following another car become a danger to everyone else nearby? And how quickly can a moment of anger turn into a permanent loss? At this point in the investigation, time becomes a central focus, not hours, not minutes. According to Houston police and surveillance video, only seconds separated the moment the vehicles left the apartment complex and the moment the fatal impact occurred on Court Street near Skills Park. Those seconds now carry the full weight of the case. Eyewitness News reports that after the argument at the Vermilion Apartments, the gold Toyota sedan left the parking lot. Police say it was driven by the woman. A few moments later, the Chevy Cobalt followed. Police say the Chevy was driven by the man who had been involved in the argument. From there, both vehicles entered nearby streets. Surveillance video later shows a gold sedan speeding down the street. Seconds later, the Chevy appears behind it. Investigators say the gap between the two cars was short. The gold sedan passed quickly through the area. The Chevy did not. Instead, police say it struck Santos as she stood in her driveway. The time between those two events is measured not in distance, but in moments. That compression of time leaves little room for pause, reflection, or correction. A nearby resident described hearing the crash from inside their room. They said they heard a loud crash and at first did not know if it was far away. Then they heard screams and realized it was close. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what was going on. That reaction itself happened within seconds. By the time anyone could respond, the impact had already happened. From an investigative perspective, these seconds matter because they limit explanations. Police are not describing a long pursuit across the city. They are describing a rapid sequence that unfolded quickly after the argument. The vehicles did not separate for long. They did not slow down. They moved from one location to another almost immediately. Robert White said he was watching his office cameras when he saw a car come out of the apartments and speed around the corner. He then saw employees run outside after crash. His account supports the idea that the time between leaving the complex and the crash was very short. There was no extended gap where things cooled down. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend. That statement explains why the second car stayed close to the first. It also explains why speed became a factor so quickly. According to police, the focus of the driver was on the other vehicle, not on the surroundings. In my opinion, this is where the danger becomes most clear. When seconds shrink, so does awareness. Residential streets do not offer space for error. Driveways are not protected zones. People stand outside their homes without expecting vehicles to enter that space. When a situation moves as fast, everyone nearby becomes vulnerable. Eyewitness News reported that two cars came whizzing by. The first drove very quickly past the driveway. The second, which police say was chasing after the first, struck Santos instead. That detail shows how narrow the margin was. A few seconds earlier or later, and the outcome might have been different. Instead, those seconds aligned in the worst possible way. Santos was a mother of 4. Her children later told reporters they are devastated by her death. That loss traces back not to a long series of events, but to a brief chain of decisions made in a very short time. This chapter leaves viewers with difficult questions. When seconds matter this much, should a driver ever continue following another car? At what point should movement stop? And how often do small moments turn into permanent loss? By this point in the investigation, one fact stands out clearly in police statements and surveillance footage. The woman who was killed was not the person involved in the argument. According to Houston police, the second driver was chasing after a girlfriend. The vehicle he was following was a gold Toyota sedan. Yet the car that was struck was neither of those. It was Santos, a mother of 4, standing in her own driveway. Eyewitness News reports that two cars came whizzing by on Court Street near Skills Park. The first car, the gold Toyota sedan, drove very quickly past the driveway. The second car, a Chevy Cobalt, followed. Police say the second car was chasing the first. Instead of reaching the vehicle it was following, investigators say the Chevy hit Santos as she stood in her driveway. This detail shifts the focus again. The chase did not end where it was aimed. The impact did not involve the two people who had been arguing. It involved someone with no connection to the dispute. From an investigative standpoint, this is not a small detail. It is the central tragedy of the case. Surveillance video shows the sequence clearly. The gold sedan passes through the area. Seconds later, the Chevy follows. The video captures the screech of tires before the impact. You hear the sound before you fully understand what has happened. Police say that moment is when Santos was hit and killed. A nearby resident described hearing the crash from inside their room. They said they did not know at first if the sound was far away. Then they heard screams and realized it was close. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what's going on. That reaction shows how unexpected the impact was for everyone nearby. From what police have said, the intention of the driver was focused on another car. That does not change the outcome, but explains why the driveway became the point of impact. The gold sedan moved on. The Chevy did not stop in time. The result was fatal. Eyewitness News reports that the argument that led to this started earlier at the Vermilion Apartments. Neighbors say a man and his girlfriend were having a heated argument in the parking lot. Surveillance video shows the gold sedan leaving the complex. Police say it was being driven by the woman. A few moments later, the Chevy driven by the man followed. Robert White said he was watching his office cameras when he saw a car come out of the apartments and speed around the corner. He then saw employees run outside after the crash. That account lines up with police statements that the sequence unfolded quickly. In my opinion, this is the most painful part of the story. The person who lost her life was not part of the argument. She was not in a vehicle. She was not moving through the street. She was standing in her driveway, a place most people consider safe. The wrong target does not mean the wrong outcome. It means the wrong person paid the price. Police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt is still under arrest and charges are pending. That tells us the case is not finished. Investigators are still working through what happened and how it will be addressed. Neighbors expressed disbelief and anger. One neighbor said they were upset that reckless behavior in a residential area led to children losing their mother over something that did not matter. That reaction reflects what many people feel when they hear the story. This chapter leaves viewers with questions that are hard to ignore. If the chase was focused on another car, why did it continue through a neighborhood? How quickly can attention shift away from surroundings? And how often do people who are not involved become the ones who suffer the most? Share your thoughts in the comments now. The investigation now turns inward, away from the street, and toward the homes that surround it. What happened on Court Street near Skills Park was not only seen on surveillance video. It was also heard from inside nearby rooms. According to Eyewitness News, residents were inside their homes when the crash happened. They did not see the cars first. They heard them. One resident described the moment clearly. They said they were in their room when they heard a loud crash. At first, they did not know if the sound was far away. The noise did not immediately make sense. Then they heard screams. They said the screams sounded a lot closer than expected. That was the moment they understood something serious had happened. They put on their shoes and ran upstairs to see what was going on. This account matters because it shows how close this incident was to everyday life. People were inside their homes, in their rooms, not expecting danger. There was no warning, no time to prepare. The sound came first. The meaning followed seconds later. Eyewitness News reports that the crash happened on Tuesday afternoon. Houston police say a woman was standing in her own driveway when she was hit and killed. She was a mother of 4. The impact happened so quickly that those nearby only realized the seriousness after hearing the screams. From an investigative point of view, these voices confirm the timeline police described. 2 cars came whizzing by. The first drove very quickly past the driveway. The second, which police say was chasing after the first car, struck Santos instead. The people inside nearby homes did not hear a long sequence of events. They heard one loud crash. The reaction of the resident who ran outside is important. It shows how immediate the response was. There was no delay between hearing the crash and trying to help. Yet by the time people reached the scene, the damage had already been done. That detail reinforces how fast the situation unfolded. Robert White also described what he saw from inside his office. He said he saw a car come out of the apartments and speed around the corner while he was watching his cameras. Then he saw employees run outside. His account lines up with what residents heard. First movement, then impact. then people rushing toward the street. Eyewitness News reported that neighbors remain in disbelief. One neighbor expressed anger, saying they were upset that reckless behavior led to someone losing their life. They said children lost their mother over something that did not matter because people want speed through a residential area. That reaction reflects the emotional weight felt by those who live nearby. In my opinion, these voices from inside are some of the most important in the case. Surveillance video shows what happened. Police statements explain why they believe it happened. But the voices tell us how close this tragedy was to ordinary life. A person inside their room, a loud sound, screams, running outside. These are not distant details. They are immediate and human. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt is still under arrest and charges are pending. Santos' children told reporters they are devastated by the death of their mother. Those facts remain unchanged. What changes here is perspective. The impact was not isolated to the driveway. It reached inside nearby homes through sound and shock. This chapter raises questions that viewers may already be thinking about. How many people were inside nearby homes at that moment? How many heard the crash but could not see it? And how does hearing something like this change the way people feel about their own street? Share your thoughts in the comments now. At this point in the case, the investigation adds another layer of confirmation, not from police alone, not from residents inside nearby homes, but from someone watching events unfold through a camera before the impact became fully known. Eyewitness News reports that Robert White was inside his office when the event occurred. He was not standing on the street. He was watching from inside, to office cameras. According to his statement, White said he saw a car coming out of the apartment complex and speeding around the corner. He explained that he happened to be looking at the camera when the vehicle appeared. Moments later, he saw employees run outside. That sequence is important because it places an independent observer into the timeline, someone not directly involved and not reacting only after hearing the crash. This account supports what Houston police have said about how quickly the situation developed. The gold Toyota sedan left the Vermilion apartments. Police say it was driven by the woman involved in the argument. A few moments later, the Chevy Cobalt followed. White's camera view captured part of that movement. He did not describe a slow departure. He described speed. Eyewitness News reports that the crash happened seconds later. Two cars came whizzing by on Court Street near Skills Park. The first drove very quickly past the driveway. The second, which police say was chasing after the first car, struck Santos as she stood in her driveway. White's observation fits directly into that sequence. Car leaves. Car speeds. People run outside. From an investigative point of view, this matters because it confirms a timeline without relying on people who were emotionally reacting to the sound of the crash. White was already watching. He saw movement before others knew what happened. His account connects the argument location to the crash location through direct observation. This also answers part of the question raised earlier in the case. Who was watching when this happened? Not everyone was caught by surprise. At least one person saw the speed and direction before the impact became known. That does not change the outcome, but it strengthens the understanding of how fast everything moved. White's statement also supports the idea that the events were tightly connected. The vehicles did not disappear from view for long. There was no long break between leaving the apartments and the crash. The moment employees ran outside tells us the crash happened almost immediately after the car sped around the corner. Eyewitness News also reported reaction from neighbors who were not watching cameras, but were close enough to feel the shock. One neighbor expressed anger, saying they were upset that reckless behavior led to someone losing their life. They said children lost their mother over something that did not matter. That reaction adds emotional weight to what White observed from a distance. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt is still under arrest and charges are pending. That fact remains unchanged. What changes here is clarity. With each witness, the picture becomes more focused, not more dramatic, more precise. In my opinion, this chapter highlights how tragedy can be seen from different angles at the same time. One person hears screams from inside a room. Another sees speed on a screen. Both arrive at the same result. A mother of four is gone. A family is left devastated. Santos' children told reporters they are devastated by the death of their mother, that human cost is behind every camera frame and every police statement. The images do not show the children, but their loss is a result of what those cameras captured. This chapter also raises questions for viewers. When someone sees speed like that on a camera, what can they do? Is there ever time to intervene? Or does everything move too fast for action? Share your thoughts in the comments now. The investigation reaches a point that often feels like closure, but is not. Houston police say the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt is currently still under arrest. Charges, however, are pending. That single word, pending, now defines the stage of the case. There is a person in custody, yet many of the most important questions remain unanswered. Eyewitness news reports that police believe the man was chasing after his girlfriend following an argument. That explanation has been repeated by investigators as they describe why two vehicles were moving quickly through a residential area. What has not been finalized, according to police, is how the law will ultimately define what happened in those seconds on Court Street near Skills Park. From an investigative standpoint, an arrest without immediate charges signals review. Police have said what they believe occurred, but determining how to legally classify the driver's actions takes time. The difference between reckless behavior and criminal intent is not decided in a moment. It is weighed through evidence, video, witness statements, and procedure. The known facts remain steady. A woman was standing in her own driveway when she was hit and killed. She was a mother of 4. 2 cars came whizzing by. The first drove very quickly past her. The second, which police say was chasing after the first car, struck her instead. Surveillance video captured the screech of tires before the impact. Witnesses heard the crash and screams. An office camera operator saw a car speed around a corner and then saw employees run outside. Houston police have confirmed that the man involved is in custody. At the same time, they have been clear that charges are pending. This means investigators are still working through the details. They are reviewing what the video shows, how fast the vehicles were moving, and how the events unfolded from the argument at the Vermilion Apartments to the driveway where Santos was standing. For Santos' children, the legal process does not ease a loss. Eyewitness news reported that her children told reporters they are devastated by the death of their mother. An arrest does not change that reality. It does not answer the questions they may carry. It only marks the beginning of another long process. Neighbors have also reacted strongly to the stage of the case. One neighbor said they were angry that reckless behavior led to someone losing their life. They said children lost their mother over something that did not matter. That frustration is now tied to waiting. Waiting to see what charges will be filed. Waiting to see how responsibility will be defined. In my opinion, this is one of the hardest chapters for families and communities. An arrest suggests accountability, but uncertainty follows close behind. People know what happened, but they do not yet know how the system will respond. The silence between updates can feel heavy. Eyewitness news also reported that the people involved used to live at the apartment complex but had moved out some time ago. They returned Tuesday to meet with friends before an argument broke out. That detail remains part of the timeline investigators are reviewing. It places familiar faces back into a familiar space. Just before everything changed, police have not released further details about charges. They've said only that the man remains under arrest and that the investigation is ongoing. That leaves the public with facts, but not conclusions. This chapter raises important questions for viewers. When an arrest happened but charges are pending, what does justice look like in the meantime? How long should families wait for answers? And how does a community process loss while the case is still unfolding? Share your thoughts in the comments now. At this stage of the investigation, attention turns to a detail that may seem small at first, but continues to surface in witness accounts. Eyewitness news reports that people who lived at the Vermilion Apartments said the man and the woman involved no longer lived there. They had moved out some time ago. Yet on Tuesday, they returned to the complex, and shortly after, the argument that police say led to the crash broke out. This detail matters because it places the beginning of the tragedy in a space that was once familiar, but no longer home. According to residents, the couple came back to the apartment complex to meet with friends. It was during that visit that neighbors say a heated argument started in the parking lot. Surveillance video later showed the gold Toyota sedan leaving the complex, followed moments later by the Chevy Cobalt. From an investigative point of view, this raises a simple but important question. If they no longer lived there, why were they back that day? Eyewitness News does not report any dispute before their arrival. There is no mention of problems earlier in the day. The argument appears to begin after they returned to the complex. Police have not said that returning to the apartments was unusual or unlawful. What they have said is that the argument began there and that it happened shortly before both cars left the parking lot. That connection is what places the apartment complex at the starting point of the timeline. Residents told Eyewitness News that the man and the woman used to live at the complex but had moved out a while ago. This suggests they were familiar with the area. They knew the parking lot. They knew the nearby streets. That familiarity may help explain how quickly events move from one location to another. Surveillance video shows the gold sedan leaving the complex. Police say it was being driven by the woman. A few moments later, the Chevy driven by the man followed. Within seconds, police say the Chevy crashed on Court Street near Skills Park, hitting Santos as she stood in her driveway. In my opinion, this part of the story adds a quiet layer of tension. Returning to a former place can carry emotion. Familiar spaces can bring back unresolved issues. While Eyewitness News does not describe what was said during the argument, it is clear that something caused it to escalate quickly. This is not about assigning motive where none has been stated. It is about understanding context. The argument did not begin randomly on the street. It began at a place tied to the past of the people involved. That past connection may be why emotions ran high. Though police have not provided details beyond what witnesses observed. Robert White said he saw a car coming out of the apartments and speeding around the corner. His statement fits with residents' accounts that the couple left the complex in a hurry. The movement from parking lot to street happened quickly, leaving little time for situation to slow down. Eyewitness News also reported reaction from neighbors who were left trying to make sense of it all. One neighbor said they were angry that reckless behavior led to children losing their mother. That anger now sits alongside confusion. People are not only asking how this happened, but why the people involved were there in the first place. Houston police say the man remains under arrest and charges are pending. They have not linked the moved-out detail to any specific decision or action. It remains part of the background investigators are reviewing as they assess the full sequence of events. This chapter leaves viewers with questions that continue to build. Does returning to a former home change how people act? Does familiarity with an area create a false sense of control? And does knowing the streets make speed feel less dangerous than it really is? As the investigation continues, the focus moves away from the vehicles, the cameras in the street, and returns to the people most affected by what happened. Houston police confirmed that the woman who was hit and killed was a mother of 4. Eyewitness News reported that her children told reporters they are devastated by the death of their beloved mother. That fact alone changes how this case is understood. The crash happened on Court Street near Skills Park. Surveillance video captured the screech of tires before the impact. Witnesses heard a loud crash followed by screams. Police say 2 cars came whizzing by, and the second car struck Santos as she stood in her driveway. Those details explain how the incident happened. They do not explain what it means for the family left behind. According to Eyewitness News, Santos was simply standing in her driveway when she was hit. She was not part of the argument that police say started at the Vermilion Apartments. She was not in a vehicle. She was not moving through the street. She was at home. Her children now have to live with the loss of a parent taken in a moment they had no control over. Neighbors told Eyewitness News they remain in disbelief. One neighbor expressed anger, saying they were upset that reckless behavior led to someone losing their life. They said children lost their mother over something that did not matter. That reaction reflects how many people see the outcome. The focus is no longer on speed or pursuit, but on absence. From an investigative point of view, the case still centers on the actions of the driver, who remains under arrest with charges pending. From a human point of view, the case centers on 4 children who will not see their mother return home. That difference matters. In my opinion, This is a part of the story that stays with people long after the details fade. Surveillance footage can be replayed. Police statements can be updated. Legal decisions will eventually be made. But for Santos' children, time moves forward without answers that can fix what was lost. Eyewitness News did not report the ages of the children or what comes next for them. What is clear is that they are now living in a reality shaped by a single afternoon. The driveway where their mother was standing is now tied to a memory that cannot be undone. Houston police have said the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt remains in custody and that charges are pending. That process will continue. Courts will examine intent, speed, and decisions. None of those steps change the daily impact on the family. Neighbors also spoke about how the incident has changed how they feel about their street. Hearing that a mother was killed in her own driveway forces people to think about safety in places that are supposed to be calm. It turns an ordinary setting into a reminder of loss. This chapter reframes a case. It is no longer only about two cars and an argument. It is about what remains after those cars are gone. A family without a mother, children carrying grief forward, a neighborhood left asking how something so sudden could leave such a lasting mark. It also raises difficult questions for viewers. When people talk about reckless behavior, do they think about the families affected afterward? When a case moves through the legal system, how often do we remember the people waiting quietly on the other side of those decisions? Share your thoughts in the comments now. At this point in the case, the focus turns to how investigators will ultimately define what happened. Houston police have said the man behind the wheel of the Chevy Cobalt was chasing after his girlfriend after the two got into an argument. They have also confirmed that he remains under arrest and that charges are pending. What has not been announced is whether the actions will be classified as recklessness or something more serious. Eyewitness News reports that two cars came whizzing by on Court Street near Skills Park. The first car drove very quickly past the driveway. The second car, which police say was chasing after first, struck Santos as she stood in her driveway. Surveillance video captured the screech of tires before the impact. Witnesses heard the crash and screams. These facts are not in dispute. The question now is how they are interpreted. From an investigative standpoint, this stage is about weighing behavior. Police are looking at speed, distance, timing, and decision-making. The chase began after an argument at the Vermilion Apartments. Surveillance video shows the gold Toyota sedan leaving the complex, followed moments later by the Chevy Cobalt. Within seconds, the crash happened. That compressed timeline is central to how investigators assess responsibility. Houston police have not said that the driver intended to hit anyone. They have said he was chasing after his girlfriend. That distinction matters legally. Intent and recklessness are not the same. One implies a purpose. The other implies disregard. Determining which applies requires careful review of evidence. Eyewitness News has not reported any statements suggesting Santos was targeted. Police have been clear that she was not involved in the argument. She was standing in her driveway when she was hit. That fact places her entirely outside the conflict that preceded the crash. In my opinion, this is where the case becomes most difficult to sit with. The outcome is the same regardless of the label. A mother of four lost her life. Her children are devastated. Neighbors remain in disbelief. But the legal system must still decide how to describe the actions that led to that outcome. Witness accounts support the idea that events unfolded quickly. One resident said they heard a loud crash and then screams that sounded closer than expected. They ran outside to see what's going on. Robert White said he saw a car coming out of the apartment and speeding around the corner, then saw employees run outside. These accounts support police statements about speed and immediacy. Houston police say charges are pending as they continue to assess the situation. That assessment includes reviewing surveillance video, witness statements, and the sequence of events from the argument to the crash. It also includes deciding whether the driver's actions meet criminal thresholds under the law. Neighbors have expressed strong reactions. One neighbor said they were angry that reckless behavior led to children losing their mother over something that did not matter. That statement reflects how many people view the incident. To them, the distinction between recklessness and intent feels secondary to the loss itself. From a human perspective, waiting for a legal definition can feel frustrating. Families want answers. Communities want clarity. But investigations move at their own pace. Police have said only what they know so far and have avoided making final judgments before charges are filed. This chapter is about uncertainty. There is an arrest, but no conclusion. There is evidence, but no final interpretation. There is loss, but no resolution yet. That space between what happened and how it will be defined is where this case now sits. It also raises questions for viewers. When speed follows emotion, where does responsibility begin? Does chasing another car through a residential area cross a clear line, or does the law require something more? And how should justice account for harm when intent is unclear, but the outcome is irreversible? Share your thoughts in the comments now. Houston police say a woman standing in her own driveway was hit and killed. She was a mother of 4. 2 cars came whizzing by. One passed. The other, police say, was chasing after a girlfriend following an argument and struck her instead. The driver remains under arrest, with charges pending. In my view, this case shows how speed in a residential area leaves no room for safety. What should change so driveways never become danger zones? Share your thoughts in the comments.